People started panning for gold round here in the 1840s, back when somebody made a big strike up at Villarica, Jenny began. Folks up in Dahlonega set up a U.S. Mint just to handle all the coinage that was coming out of the mountains. Most of the mining in these parts was just panning, or some elaborate mechanical panning of a large stream. But some Georgia boys got lucky. They set up huge hoses that washed the dirt right off the hill and down through a series of screens. One particular vein led right underground, and they kept checking it deeper and deeper. Not many of these mines were actually underground like this one, she continued. It's not real deep. I think the Cantrell's fruit cellars probably has more space. I guess the Yankees got control of the mint after the war because they moved it out to Colorado. But they made a lot of Confederate coin up there, pretty shiny things with a big fat D on them. They even sent some men down here to copy our courthouse just to house the operation, she finished. Pressing through the overgrowth, Jenny soon announced, "Here we are. Hard to see the opening covered up as it is, but see the planking poking out? It's really pretty in the mornings with all the blue flowers opening around it. Look at those huge ferns." The children pressed closely to the decaying boards that only sparsely covered the entrance. Damp, moist air rising out of the ground chilled their sweaty foreheads. Suddenly, all eyes turned to each other in disbelief as a strange, muffled cry was heard. It emanated faintly from deep underground. Henry, fur bristling, sniffed curiously about the ground. "What the devil was that?" Jenny heaved, astonished, and listened intently again. "A cat or some animal?" Rady suggested. Jenny shook her head, pulling some vines back away from the entrance. Peering down the dark corridor into the dim recesses of the mine, she was comforted by the group simultaneously peeking eagerly behind her. Suddenly, a bat, a bird, or some frightened animal possibly, darted out the clogged opening. Rady felt something brush against the side of her leg. She screamed, Jenny screamed, and Liz all but fainted dead away as they collapsed backward onto one another. "Good Lord, the gates of hell couldn't be any worse than that heart-stopper," Jenny lamented. Rady, her composure severely shaken, perspired profusely and moved to check on Liz. She felt her left stocking gathered at her ankle, and looking about, realized that her garter had snapped and flown off quite forcefully, thus initiating their fright. Jenny tried to be angry, but couldn't suppress an outrageous laugh that soon entangled Liz, who stared instantly at her older sister, wondering just how mature she really was after all. Then the cavern called again. "Help! Help! Let me out! Let me out!" Gathering again at the arched grotto-like opening, the girls could only make out dry, crusty poles of lumber and rotting crossbeams. The rough walls and broken stones formed a precarious tunnel, narrow and dark, down into the hillside. Drips of groundwater echoed down the hole from the small pool that had filled up at the back of the tunnel. Jenny, announcing that the whole mine wasn't more than 15 feet long, pulled off the final board and marched tentatively down the aisle. Turning to the right, she could barely make out the pool in the dim filtered light. "Well, there's no one here," she hollered to her supporters outside. Then she yelled, "Who are you? Where are you calling from?" The cry returned again, more insistently, and Jenny, entombed, heard it distinctly. "Let me out! Help me! Help me! I want out!" The last word dying away in a depressing wail. That came through the wall, Jenny deduced, and immediately proceeded out into the light. This must be thoroughly investigated, she decided, and breezed past a hesitant Rady and Liz, who did not look exceptionally thrilled. Henry, too, was obviously wavering between intense curiosity and fearful terror. The cry came again, "Are you there? Help me, help me!" and then sobs and crying. Rady, looking all around at the hillside, lumber, debris, brush, and forest, clutched Jenny's arm. "It's so near, but there isn't anywhere for anyone to be." "Where are you?" Jenny shouted. "What's the matter?" "I fell into the mine," shrieked the voice. "Get me out." "I've been through the tunnel and there's no one there," cried Jenny, anxiously glancing about, a bit befuddled. "I'm in the cave for sure, so I am. Ow! My foot hurts," the voice appealed. Jenny scowled in frustration. "That voice sounds a lot like Collette Brown to me. Collette, is that you? How'd you get in there?" "The earth done opened up and swallowed me whole. I swear to goodness I won't do nothing but picking some early blackberries to take home to Mama," came the tearful reply, "and God done opened up the earth and swallowed me whole." Jenny backed out of the mine and ran up the embankment to the wooded area about the entrance. After a few silent moments, a profound "God Almighty" echoed amidst the pines. "What is it?" Rady cried, preparing to follow. "Don't come up here," Jenny barked, "and keep Liz back. There's a big hole here with the ground has caved in." Jenny, down among the thick undergrowth, and peered over the edge of the deep, sizable, gaping hole. She could just make out the form of a young black girl crouching below on a small pile of rubble. "Well, ain't this special," she mumbled. It was a small cave-like chamber right next to the tunnels. The black girl's weight must have broken through the thin roof. She could have broke her neck, Jenny thought rapidly. "Are you hurt, Collette?" she called aloud. "Yes'm, my foot's all busted to pieces," came the response. Jenny sat back on her heels and contemplated the situation, while Collette raged on about Indian spirits and the ghost of Captain Butner pulling her down into the darkness. Rady could run for help, but the nearest house was almost 2 miles away, and most everyone would be busy out in the fields. All the children of the area had been warned on numerous occasions to stay clear of the old mine, and summoning help would compromise not only the victim, but the scouting party as well. "We'll have to bring this off ourselves," she decided. "You'd better come down and go for help, Jenny," Rady advised, as she held a wide-eyed Liz in her firm grasp. "Supposing the ground gives way more and traps you too." "Yes," Jenny grimaced, "but I'm going to check the shaft one more time. The dirt has to be awfully soft along the cave-in. Maybe she can crawl out down there," Jenny called down reassuringly from the hillside, and hurriedly scrambled to her friends. "Are you sure it's safe to go in there again?" Rady demanded. "The whole place could give way next time." "No, I don't think so," she answered. "Most of the damage has already been done. It's solid rock through there, and don't you see now I don't see how anything else can collapse." Digging into an exposed timber with a sharp stick, she noted, "These braces have stood for a long time, and I reckon they can stand for just a little longer. Besides, if anyone finds out we've been up here, there'll be no sitting for a week, at least at my place. If Papa gets wind of this little escapade, I can just about forget racing Tristler at the county fair this year, or even attending the county fair for that matter." Thinking things through for just a moment longer, she announced, "Here goes," and plunged back into the cool dimness of the mine. Holding the wall as she progressed, she scanned the blackness for a few glimpses, focusing themselves in her vision as her nervous eyes adjusted to the darkened environment. "Into what danger would you lead me, Caesar?" she mumbled. Reaching the end of the shaft safely, she skirted the edge of the limpid black pool, noticing a glimmer of brightness on a rock projecting out into the room. She advanced to study the opening further. Jenny had guessed correctly. Stuck behind the crevasse was Collette, in tears, but relatively safe. The partition between the shaft and a small cavern had almost met. Apparently the thin limestone covering had gradually worn away, and with the added weight of the young girl, collapsed into the mine. Peering around the boulder, Jenny could pull away enough debris to crawl through to Collette.